happened, I was no longer in a place where I want to stay here and try to make this company better. It was I want to do everything I can to do this all the time because I love this. Like, how can I be a good leader? Inspirational to the people around me without hard fists in situations, too assertive or too, overpowering.
So welcome back to another powerful episode of Marketing by Design, powered by AMA Columbus. Here at MBD, we dive into conversations with industry leaders of every expertise, covering everything marketing, creativity, design, to help you find your niche and become a more effective version of your professional self. So your goal is to get hired, to make connections, or just hone your craft. He is your destination for marketers, business owners, entrepreneurial leaders in the 614. Our guest today is Tami Chapek, the founder and principal of We Inspire We. If you guys don't know or have never heard, is a leadership coaching firm in Columbus, Ohio, dedicated to empowering individuals to lead authentically and effectively. Tami's journey from an advertising exec in a fast-paced corporate world, almost 20 years of experience in the marketing environment, to a successful entrepreneur and leadership coach is honestly just super inspiring, and also packed with insights that are especially valuable for job seekers, marketers, business owners, creatives. In this episode, Tami shares her unique framework for leadership, emphasizing the power of leaning into your authentic self, harnessing your strengths, and building meaningful connections. Oh, yes. In fact, actually, all listeners of this episode, you guys can book a free consultation with the career storyteller Brooke at the link below this episode. So if you're in a career in marketing, you're between jobs, or you're just trying to navigate a career in marketing and you want some feedback on your direction and mindset, Brooke is a great resource and someone that is very important to talk to when you're going through times like this, or you just want an idea in terms of getting feedback on what your next steps in the marketing industry or a job search industry may be. You guys can head to the We Inspire We site below to get someone to bounce ideas off of. I also want to thank the lovely Columbus Chamber of Commerce for bringing us together for this episode. Personally, we are both members. Tami and I are. That's actually how we got in. Has not just returned on the ROI of being involved for my agency, MMG Design, but has just been a great resource to help me become a better speaker and just share what I do as a business owner. If you guys follow me on LinkedIn, you've probably seen a ton of the events that I've gone to, have captured footage, shared the connections, and they always have really good food. So I highly recommend the Columbus Chamber. Get you a good account manager like the man Nick Tafoya, and thank you again to them for being partners for this episode. So without further ado, this is entry 70 of the show, Marketing by Design. I'm so stoked to share our guest, Tami Chapek. Let's dive on. Yeah, so tell me how you got started. I know you're the founder, principal of We Inspire We. You've impacted a lot of, leaders and business owners, and I'd love to hear kind of how that got started, a little bit about your background that maybe led to the inspiration for that, because I think there's a story there that's worth telling. So
there's probably a hundred stories there, but the short story is I started my career in marketing and advertising, so in your world. And I always saw that was my career path. I actually started college wanting to be an art teacher, and then I decided I had zero tolerance for teaching kids. So I finished with a major in marketing, basically using my art, kind of creative and business brains, putting them together. So I was in advertising for a long time. And I have various key moments as I was growing up in the industry where things happened that I think could have been better, right? Like the first time I was a manager, I totally over-controlled everything, micromanaged, just did everything probably the exact opposite way that I should have. As I kept growing and growing, I would get these interesting nuggets of feedback or these interesting insights along the way. And I was like, gosh, I think I can be a better boss than I'm being, but I'm having to figure out a lot on my own and throw a lot of road bumps along the way. So instead of getting frustrated by that or being put off by that, I found it to be quite a passion area for me to dig into, how can I be a good leader? How can I, be inspirational to the people around me without, that kind of hard fist in situation, without being too assertive or too, overpowering. And certainly it was a lot of trial and error. But then as I kept growing and getting more and more promotions and kind of rising up the proverbial ladder, I found that I wanted to do more give back. And so I went up mentoring a lot of younger women in particular, but younger individuals, and really trying to help them figure out, how do they grow their careers, and how do they, kind of learn from my mistakes and my lessons along the way. So that was kind of all happening, kind of percolating in the background. And then in 2017, I was still in advertising, and I moved into a different role within the company. And it was a holy disaster. I was doing kind of a hybrid account management strategy role with a new business development role. And I really wasn't set up for success. I didn't have the right support from my leadership. I didn't have the amount of authority I needed to be successful in that role, and a whole host of other things. And I just had this come to Jesus with myself. Is this what I want my life to be? Do I want to keep doing this, stressing myself out, burning myself out, working in this fast-paced environment where I'm helping other people make money and be successful, and just kind of miserable along the way? And obviously there's a lot more to that story too.
Yeah. Not to butt in, but usually it takes that one moment where everything kind of forces change. It's like the pain of change is either you reach a point where the pain of changing is less than the pain of staying the same. And everyone kind of has that chapter in his life where that's really the inflection point, where it's what would it be like if it was different? I was the one taking control and ownership of it. So
it's funny because I didn't still have the vision or aspiration to be an entrepreneur. That was still not part of my thing, but I did a lot of soul searching, and I worked with a coach myself to kind of figure out what is it that I really want to be doing, because I want to be happier than I am right now, right? I want to be more satisfied and fulfilled, and not just, in financial ways. I was doing well for myself, but that wasn't adding up. So I want to, really coming to the realization that back to that leadership story, I love feeding into other people. I loved helping other people succeed. So I wound up signing up for coaching classes, thinking that I would run the department, run the team, help grow the team internally, still seeing myself as part of this agency model. And kind of day one of classes, I was like, whoa, this is it, right? This is it for me. And I actually tell people jokingly, it took over my soul, and it's kind of true. So once that happened, I was no longer in a place where I want to stay here and try to make this company better. It was I want to do everything I can to do this all the time, because I love this.
Nice.
So then I became on a mission to leave corporate America and start my own company, and did so.
That's awesome. Well, and how long have you been in business now? We Inspire
7 years.
Wow. Okay. So in the bridging that gap there, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned going out on your own? Because it's never easy. I'm very much in kind of the first chapter stage of my story. That just graduated last semester from the University of Findlay. So I'm a little over a year out, and it's different. And you see a lot of the people around you doing things that you're not doing. There's a lot more stable jobs. Even depending on whether your family situation is you may not have grown up in an entrepreneurial household. I'd be curious to hear that from you as well. Yeah, I'm very much the same. So it's part of it is explaining to the people around you and having the trust in them to support you while maybe they don't understand at the same time. So can you kind of talk about that transition from being in corporate to letting these ideas take over and build it into what it is today?
Yeah, there were so many things along the way, or things I had to work through. And one of the first, outside of just kind of figuring out how to make money and pay my bills, which that's a whole other story. But one of the big things I had to really work through was my identity shift. I have always been a very career-driven person, or kind of success-oriented person. Even as a young child to today, give me a goal, I'm gonna get it, right? And so, I was really proud of my career path, and I was proud of the title and where I was, professionally. And to go from being a vice president in an ad agency to being a leadership coach was a hard pill to swallow. Even though that's what I wanted to do and where my passion and energy was, my self-identity was wrapped up in that kind of agency world, that marketing world. And I then all of a sudden was feeling really insecure and really uncomfortable, and really having a hard time talking about what I was doing and why, and feeling putting my own judgment on me, but perceived judgment from other people. So I really had to get come to grips with this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and I'm proud of it, right? And I'm excited about the change that I can make in other people's lives. And that was probably the hardest, biggest thing for me to shift, stepping into this world. In addition to that, I think, always having worked in a corporate environment, a team environment, to go and work by myself was a huge change. That was a tough one to adjust to. And then I think also the one that probably most entrepreneurs struggle with is kind of what I led with around the finances. I went from, having a very steady, decent income to no guarantees about money at all. And there was a lot of pressure and a lot of, fear, scarcity perspective that I was holding on to about like, how will I, when I, can I, how I, and I had a friend, I was actually coaching her, and then we always had to have these like side chats afterwards.
Yeah.
And she said something to me along the lines of, Tami, you can't look at everyone you meet as your lunch. Basically, like the desperation of I need a new client kind of mentality kind of coming out. And it was like, and so I really had to get comfortable with that. Like, it's not about meeting people to buy my lunch, right? It's about meeting people to make the impact that I feel like I can make in people's lives. And that was a real turning point and a huge change in the business itself. I went from, getting a couple clients a month to lots, to, really being able to pay my bills and kind of back to where it was financially in corporate America. So I think that scarcity versus abundance mindset, that shift is really, really powerful. And I say that not to be naive about, your finances, but also to trust the process and know that it will work out if you keep doing good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so much of what you just said, like, I mean, even circling back to just showing up for yourself is the biggest transition. Like, you kind of live, especially in corporate and going to jobs, like, you really have to make that transition to, okay, you're not working for someone else. Like, I don't show up for myself and I don't hold myself accountable, then, there's no food on the table, literally. And that's, there's all sorts of different motivations and spins you can put on it, but it's not for everybody. And there's always that period you go through right at the beginning where it is really hard, and it's just about knowing why you started and really having that testimonial or that moment that just like really validated that you're doing the right thing. And then just so much of what it is in the beginning is just guaranteed effort and guaranteed hardship with unguaranteed results, so you kind of have to match your personality to that. But no, that was really awesome. But kind of expanding upon that, like, how does the vision for what it was when it started match what it ended up being today? Because I think you were a very driven person in the fact that and a lot of people I've interviewed is kind of skews back and forth. It's like you had this clear vision of what you wanted it to be. Maybe you didn't know you were going to hire coaches in the beginning, or you just thought it was going to be a one-time thing where you worked independently. How intentional were you in the beginning about? Because I know, like, it's a lot of people in the beginning, it's just saying yes to everything, like you said, that scarcity mindset. And I love what you said there too about scarcity mindset. Is once you realize that it's a zero-sum game, and that everyone you meet is not, you're not looking to take from them, but there's this just mutual value exchange that we can all happen. And that's why resources like the chamber, where you can get in places where all these people have similar goals and aspirations, is so beneficial, because all these people can surround each other and help each other. But how closely did that from the beginning, how did that roadmap work out, or is it totally different from what it was in your head when you first started?
I'm proud to say it's pretty consistent. And I think probably being a marketer helped me in that, of having like the vision setting exercises and really kind of thinking through what I want it to be long term. It has changed in some ways. And so, in the beginning, I really, started out with kind of, what do I call it? Who are we? What does this look like? What's our mission? And I intentionally didn't title it Tami Chapek Coaching. Like everyone I know that's a coach, it's something with their name, and because they are the brand, right? But I always had a vision for it being a team and really being about community, which is why I titled it We Inspire We, or named it We Inspire We, because it's about we collectively coming together to inspire and uplift each other. And so that vision has really held true to who we are as an organization. Now our focus has changed a little bit along the way. So there are some underpinnings there. When I started out, coming out of a world where I was, a minority leader, being a woman on the team, it's a very male dominated leadership level in agencies. And there's good reason for that, right? Agencies will burn people out. And oftentimes women choose to be with their families and choose to not have that lifestyle, which is completely understood. So I went into it with a lot of passion around, like, I need help, women. I need help. Only women get ahead because women need help. I still believe that's true, but I've also realized very, very quickly along the way that if we don't all work together, again, this kind of community coming together to make change in the world around us, it won't happen. Women can fight and advocate as much as they want, but without other people in more senior roles helping to open doors, to be sponsors, to see the talent or give the opportunities, it still becomes a challenge. So we've shifted our focus to be really about helping women, underrepresented groups, and men in general, white men in general, to really change their perspective and outlook to it's not about, my gender, my race, my whomever. It's about me as an individual, my authenticity, right? Like what strengths am I bringing into the table, and using those as a platform for leadership. So it's almost like shifted from being singular to women only to now this whole, like, I keep calling it a
Mhm.
revolution, but we really need to redefine, what good looks like so that everybody who has the potential can get there.
Nice. So let's double click on that. What would you say a good leader looks like? Because I know you've had experiences. You mentioned your first experience as a leader. How have those formed what your opinion of a leader was in the beginning? And what have you seen working with all these different backgrounds, ethnicity, gender, all these things? What are the
Mhm.
commonalities you see of a good leader if someone wants to take it upon themselves to improve?
Yeah. So the short answer is there's no one right or wrong answer. And I truly believe, like, we can, and you can Google it, right? Like top qualities of leaders, and you're going to get like 100 different answers. Charismatic, able to make decisions, confident, like you can get all these things. But at the end of the day, and this is the framework that I have, and a sneak peek to a book that's coming out soon. But my platform is that who you are as the individual is the best version of a leader that you can be. So it's really, again, talents, strengths, gifts, values, really understanding what you personally can bring to the table and leaning into that. And then I always say there's kind of three core principles that as a leader you need to embrace to be able to be successful while leaning into those authentic things. Our framework basically, first and foremost, is we call it being effective, right? So being competent in your role, knowing what you need to do to complete your job on time, on budget, whatever those things are, showing up when you say you're going to show up, doing the things that you say you're going to do. So efficacy first. Second is the ability to influence. And this goes back to really like, how do we move people, move initiatives, move projects forward? The only way to do that is to really be able to influence people to take action. We can come in, and a lot of leaders do come in, and I was guilty of it as well, coming in with this, iron fist of like, this is how it has to be done. But that's not really going to get you the best results. So we need to be able to influence without authority or without using power, right, to get action to be taken. And then the third principle that we really focus in on is to be inspirational. One thing to get people to check the list, check the box, right? I did the thing, I did the task, whatever you asked me to do. But it's a whole other thing for them to do it when they're inspired or motivated to do it and have more energy. And from being in a marketing world, right? The more inspired you are, the more creative the outcomes, the better the results, the more people put their passion and energy into it. So the combination of, you doing what you say you're going to do, you being able to influence action and motivate, those things are really what makes for a great leader, while again honoring who you are.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's I like the principle that it's not the same for everybody because I think there's different I don't know, they say like different leadership styles, but there are different qualities that I think of even just past leaders, coaches that I've looked up to and learned a lot from. And they're very different. I mean, some are more laid
Yeah.
back, some are have a more friendly approach. And I think it's really about doing the internal work to know what that looks like and what the manifestation is most effective for
Yeah,
being.
and we're all going to
And I
be attracted to different things kind of based off of our own internal values and strengths and whatever. So it's hard to
Mhm.
say like this is a great leader, this isn't, right? Because I might be attracted to this and you won't. So at the end of the day, it's like, what can you do to show up effectively, inspirationally, influentially, right? Being yourself. And then
Mhm.
the rest is like, it's not an excuse to not keep developing, right? It's like, not to be like, well, this is exactly who I am. So this is who I'm going to be forever. Like, that's not part
Yeah.
of the equation. There's still growth and development in there. But it is thing like, if I'm an introvert, I'm not going to become an extrovert to be a great leader. Like, it isn't going to happen. Like, I can't change that inner working in myself, right? So let me lean into being an introvert and have other people around me help support some of those extroversion personalities that we might need on the team, right? So it's things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think highlighting on just what you just said right there, because that kind of brought a delineation of an idea. So, like, I think a lot of people try and approach like self improvement, or they say they step into a leadership role. They think they need to embody, say, an extroverted personality, which is maybe contrary. So they focus 100% on developing that. They'll start going to networking events. They'll start maybe doing Toastmasters or something like that. When really their North Star is kind of aligned because they're trying to change something that's fundamental about them. Whereas if they were to use that to an advantage, maybe and work with a coach that could help them use that to communicate effectively just in a different way. It's good to start I think by reframing what a leader can be, and then that the personality traits that I have can actually be used to facilitate that, and that can become my own type of leader. But Have you ever had a case study or a great testimonial or something where you felt like, yes, like I'm doing the right thing? Like maybe you had someone that come to work with you and they just made an incredible transformation and you thought like there's actually substance here, like there's so much value in what I do. Is there an example of that that comes to mind?
Yeah, there's several. The funny thing with coaching is, right, like you're so behind the scenes with the individual, right? So in some regard, you very much see first, right front and center what the change and evolution that's going on for them. In others, you might not see it, but they see it and feel it and recognize it. So like
Hmm.
one example, there was the very first person I ever coached. And in my mind, I was like, she hates this. Like, I don't know that she's getting anything out of this. Like, I don't know that I'm adding any value. And at the end of it, she sent me this beautiful silk scarf and a thank you note about how much I changed her life and how much it impacted her and how she looked forward to our time together, like all these things. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea. So I share that because on one hand, I'm like, I try not to look into it to be like, what have I done? Right. But it's more about what have they done? How have they grown? How are they
Yeah.
getting what they need out of the situation? I will share one example of just a very recent client I worked with. She lives in France, works for an American company. So I was fortunate to get the referral that way, and time zones worked out just fine. But she was really suffering from lack of confidence and belief in herself and really feeling like her worth only came from work, that like she had to be a doer and had to keep, checking things off the list and working crazy hours, like really kind of killing herself to be valued by the organization and to feel valued as a person. And we went through this whole deep dive into, the what worth is, what her value really is. She's in a leadership role, and as a leader, you need to be teaching your team how to be doing these things, not you doing all of it for them, right? And so
Hmm.
huge shifts in her approach and her outlook and her thoughts. And last time we spoke, we just wrapped up our program a couple months ago, and last time we spoke, she had just taken a vacation and didn't check her emails the entire time, and like was really able to kind of feed into taking care of herself and taking care of her team at the same time. And she came back, there were no issues, they were like, business was smooth and things were running along, and that's exactly what you want to see happen,
Hmm.
right? So she kept profusely thanking me, and I was like, this is
Yeah.
you did the work, right? I just
Hmm.
helped kind of give you some things to chew on and consider. But it's those moments that really feel like you're like, wow, I really influenced or inspired someone to really think about what they need out of their lives and take
Yeah.
the steps towards it.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is because I think a lot of the times holding those things close to the chest is what makes it easier when you face the harder parts of the entrepreneurial route, the business ownership. And I think we've come in touch with a lot of people that are even at the chamber that is their story, and maybe they started because they had that one really good testimonial, that one really good case study. And I would encourage people like I even have a wall. It's at my house now, but of testimonials, basically like your hype wall, because that's the thing that you
Mhm.
have to hold steadfast to and come back to. It's the reminder of what you're doing is worth it, and that's all we have sometimes. So for the chest is really
I
important.
used to do that as a corporate employee though too. I had a little folder I would save in my inbox of like, for bad days. And I would literally like
Hmm.
anytime sent me a compliment or a thank you for something or accolades on a project, I would like file it there. And like
Hmm.
in those moments where I was like, you're struggling for whatever reason, you just go and kind of skim through it. And that was always a feel good kind of thing. So you're right
Yep.
in that keeping track of those is really helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, I'd like to like transition more into what does your day to day look like now, more Tammy as a person. So I don't know if you know who Tim Ferriss is. He's a personal hero of mine, but it's very much in my interest to kind of dissect the habits and of high performers and kind of emulate some of the things that I think have helped them to get to where they are. And it's also helpful for maybe other business owners who have similar visions and want to grow a team or improve their leadership skills or just build better habits and change their trajectory. So, what is the typical kind of and you talk about a work week, especially compared to probably how it was at an ad agency? It's busy. We're always at full capacity. But how do you get the most out of those hours and the most out of your effectiveness and create the impact you want to? So, what does a typical week, day in the life look like for the one and only Tammy?
I'm extra smiling because I literally last week went through a re deep dive in myself as to like, what do I want my weeks to look like? Because I feel like
Nice.
as you
Perfect timing.
grow an
Yeah.
organization, whether it's you're a solopreneur or working with teams, right? I think it is really important to kind of say, like, what's going to best serve me? How best do I manage my time?
By the way, if you're a marketing leader or a business owner and you want to start your reading habit, the Essential Marketer's Reading Checklist, the best books on business and marketing that you can browse through, test drive, see if you like, included difficulties, page summaries, actionable quotes, and a link to the cheapest place online if you want to buy it and read the whole thing for yourself. Literally a place to test drive a library of all the most helpful books on business without having to buy it beforehand and give you a chance if you want to see if you like it. First link in the description.
Because no one else is dictating that for me. In the past, my
Exactly.
agency days, I had deadlines, I had client deliverables, I had other people that needed me to do things so that they could do work. Now it's just me, and so certainly when I'm working with my clients, those are deadlines, right? But everything else is kind of whenever I want to. So
Exactly.
long-winded way to say. So here's what I do. I have found that I really enjoy the freedom of not being on a strict schedule, but with a little structure. So I try to kind of stick to the 9 to 5 day, but some days it's later, some days it's earlier. I think there's something about the psychology for me around, I was 9 to 5, which is usually like 9 to 9 most days before. And
100%.
so like not having like the firm start and stop is really like mentally pleasing for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I try to stick with like that and kind of just pay attention to where I am each day and what I need to get done each day, as also kind of comparing to meetings. So that's kind of rule number one. I've also, I've given myself bookends to my week so that I can stay committed and focused to kind of the periphery things that we don't necessarily want to do every day. So Monday all day and then half day Friday, I block my calendar and I call it the work, right? But that's where I will do things like sending out invoices and reconciling my QuickBooks and, checking. I do weekly planning then just to make sure I have everything going for it. Outreaches to my coaches, make sure everything's going well. We have a once a month meeting on Mondays, things like that. So I try to keep those as more kind of administrative days or kind of business management days, if you will. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday morning are really open to my clients, open for coaching sessions, for training sessions, or open to my coaches to be able to support whatever it is that they might need from me in a given moment. So my calendar can be kind of sporadic at best of what is going to be on there, a combination of a bunch of things. I also try to mix into there where I can, networking events and places to meet people. Coaching is very much a relationship business. So the more that I can meet people and introduce them to myself and my team, the better we are as a business. So that's a huge part of it too, that I try to balance out. The kind of new structure I've added kind of coming off of last week is, and this is I'll be totally transparent and honest to everyone who's listening. I love what we do. I love who we stand for as a business, but I hate sales. I hate business development. I love meeting people and having conversations, but I don't like the go for the close kind of world. And I'm trying to do it. Yeah.
That's going to resonate with a lot of people here.
It's tough and it's not it's definitely not my sweet spot. I've thought about hiring a salesperson. I've had people in similar business models to mine say, don't do it. It's not going to work. People need to meet you first. And so I'm like, I don't have a good answer to that. So I basically have restructured my calendar to have half an hour of some kind of outreach every day. So whether it's LinkedIn or if someone I've met at a networking event or, just trying to keep conversations going, because that's the best way I can serve the community and to be open to opportunities. So that's kind of my week at a glance.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like a lot of similarities to a lot of the successful people I know. And I think there's always this abstract notion like in the future is like this perfect schedule. Everything's fully optimized. I have my coffee for the day. I'm to the minute on every single task. But then you find, stuff kind of doesn't fit neatly into that little box that you had planned out ahead of time. But it's really good to see that, everyone's kind of the same and that there are these core principles like the marketing, the sales, the admin, everything that go into building a successful business. And those don't really change. It's just being consistent with them and then finding ways to improve upon them. And I think the thing about sales, everyone resonates with that. And because we all have so many negative experiences on that front. And I think the people that do it the most effectively don't even realize they're doing it or it's not even a priority. So they focus on business development, they focus on improving what they actually offer, and it'll reach the right people. And I think that's, we both have backgrounds in marketing, and I think that's kind of the North Star of what we're all trying to get to.
Yeah. And that was something my coach trainer, when I was going through the program, said is just, it's not about you selling yourself, it's about you serving others, right? And so
Right.
like where you can add value. And I really hold true to that. I just try to focus on where can I add value. And, if it's meant to be, if we're meant to support someone or a team or a business in some way, it'll work out. I just, there's no magic like scalability button put in this
Right.
business. So
Right. It's one rep at a time, which is what makes it worth it. And like I said, it is so important to have those things at the forefront that remind you, because the networking, the outreach, the business development is not always easy. But then it's like growing over time. It's not something that you see each and every day, but over time it compounds and you realize like all of a sudden like, wow, I have, in your case, I have this whole team of employees and it started with just me. And it's like, how does that actually happen? But when you look back, it's the monotonous stuff that you did in each and every day that just compounds over time. And I think that's motivating for a lot of, whether they're chamber members or just business owners in general, to hear is that the people that are even at the top that seem to have everything put together, is just really just repetition and putting in those reps every day, that on the unexciting stuff that probably you and I and the people just getting started as well that are doing every day. So
yeah,
there's
it
not a
makes me
huge
think, as
difference.
you say reps each day, it makes me think of working out, and like it is that, right? It's that commitment to
Yeah.
doing a little bit on a regular basis and then over time. And I always tell my clients this too, as we're learning and kind of exploring areas, is like it's going to feel like a lot of work right now, but as you keep doing it, right, you're building muscle memory, and then it will
Hmm.
it will become second nature to you, and it will stick. And a lot of that's mental energy, right? But like a lot of what you're talking about is true, right? You just got to start doing something and do it consistently to then again eventually get the results.
Yep, 100%. Or you and I are just like right there. I wanted to like give you a chance to talk about your team, because I think I get the sense that they're very curated and they're hand selected for each of their role. I know they have different specific roles and expertises where they can really add their value and they're able to shine and just help the most people in their areas. So tell me about how you went about collecting your team of Avengers to help you, and just I'd really love to hear you just support them and work with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a little bit of my marketing background, but each of my coaches has a title basically of kind of their focus and their specialization and what the
Mhm.
kind of work that they like to do. So I have the growth coach, I have the confidence coach, I have the alignment coach, so you can kind of imagine what types of coaching that they do and what they align
Yeah.
to with individuals. So when I started kind of wanting to recruit and kind of build the team around me, it was important for me to two things. One, to have a trusted environment in which I brought people into. So these are all coaches that I had some relationship with and prior to actually bringing them onto the team, because I felt like, I really needed to validate the model and what we were offering and how we were going to operate. So I needed people that I knew I could count on to call me out.
Mhm.
I need this, not that. This isn't working. This is, those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So they were very well kind of pre-vetted from a personal perspective in advance. I also have the criteria that all my coaches have had to go through a specific, not through a coaching training program. I didn't have
Right.
requirements on which one, but it needed to be kind of associated with either the ICF, which is the International Coach Federation, or BCC, which is Board Certified Coaches. I think a lot of people anyone can say they're a coach, right? But there's a lot of things that go into coach training, and what the difference is really around the approach and the questions, the way that you handle the relationship, versus I think a lot of people want coaches to be like, just tell me what to do. And that's not what
Mhm.
coaching is really about. It's about helping you pull out what's really going to work for you and laser in on that, and then set you up
Mhm.
for long-term success, right? So that
Absolutely.
training and that certification, that credentialing was really important as I went through and kind of building them. And then yeah, the rest was really kind of identifying from their prior corporate backgrounds or their prior careers, what experience do they have, what industries do they feed into the best, what types of clientele do they work with. And it's nice because as I look across the range of the coaches that I have, so counting me, there's 8 coaches. We basically can cover anyone who's entry level, just starting out, but wants to set themselves up for success rapidly, to C-suite executives who've been there, done that, but need some polishing or some extra support in some key strategic areas. Because
Mhm.
each of my coaches has a specialty and kind of focuses in on a different type of individual. So it's nice when we partner with organizations to come in and help support their leadership development. We can say, all right, well, you have this person here, this is gonna be great for Melanie. You have this person here, this is great for Nicole. This person's great, So I can really kind of align people based off of where they are in their career, the types of opportunities that they have in front of them, and then kind of, personality matching too, because I have definitely there's overlap in some areas. So I can be like, you actually seem like that'd be a better fit personality wise with this coach versus that coach. And that stuff really, really matters. Coaching is very much a relationship. You have to be comfortable with the person that's coaching you. Otherwise, you're not going to get the best results. So I have this beautiful team of highly talented individuals that, kind of spread across the gamut. And then I have a new person I brought on last year. Her name's Brooke, and I call her the career storyteller. And she's my you're looking for a job, go talk to Brooke, right? She's gonna help you with your resume, your LinkedIn profile, cover letter, networking strategies, job search strategies, like anything kind of in that realm. And in particular, outplacement. So when companies lay people off, right, like helping people get into the next role. And that's a huge investment for companies to make, but such an important one to kind of demonstrate that they really do care about their people. Layoffs are tough, but we have a partnership with them with Brooke and with our coaches to help set people up for that long-term greater success. So I can talk about them for hours. I'll stop. What questions you have?
I get the feeling you could talk about them all day. But yeah, I love how you kind of have a curated list and a menu selection for people, because like you said, coaching is such a one-on-one intimate relationship, and I think it's a really good look on your end to be able to have a suite that you can offer people, and it really speaks to kind of the understanding that coaching is what it is, and it's not something you can really force onto other people. So you can always make your recommendations in terms of who people want to talk to, but there's so much. And part of it is the marketing psychology is just the association that you have with someone, seeing their photo, hearing them talk. Some people are just better connections with others. And I mean, that might be a good question, is how do you kind of facilitate relationships like that? And how can you sense that bond? Someone, if you're looking at two people, how might you think they could be a good fit for one another?
Yeah, it's funny. I somehow mastered this matchmaker art. I haven't had anyone say no yet, so that's good. But what I like to do is kind of based off of what I can collect from the client themselves or from the sponsor. So if it's companies, sometimes I'll meet with HR or the manager and be like, these 3 people, and I'll get kind of intel into what it is that they want to work on, what are their opportunities, where do they see them going, from that kind of goals perspective. Tell me about their personality, their working style. I just like to kind of collect little nuggets like that. And then I'll kind of coach match, but I always give people a chemistry check. So give them a 20-30 minute kind of chat with the coach just to make sure that they do feel comfortable with them. And in that time, it is a little bit of a get to know you, but it is also like the coach kind of talking through their process, their style, their way, and also kind of collecting information on the coach, right? Like, what do you prefer? What do you, my favorite question is, how do you like feedback? Some people are like, oh, just give it to me straight. And other people are like, well, if you can kind of help me understand all the context first, so everyone's a little bit different, and each coach, their style is a little bit different too. So I try to just make sure that chemistry check call happens before anything very big commitments are made, if you will.
Yeah. And I think a big part of it too is the balance. And I mean, you know more about parenting and all these things than I do, but I think a lot of it is the balance of knowing what's right for someone and making that recommendation versus their actual inputs and their preferences. I'm very much a shoot me straight. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Tell me what sucks so we can get to the next step. But there are people that hear stuff like that and they can self collapse or they take it personally. So it is good to have that social awareness in terms of how you get feedback, because especially in marketing, my background is in design. There's a lot of emotions that go into feedback. So you very much have to be sensitive. But no, I think that's great. Tami is a matchmaker. I'll keep that in my head. So
far, I have 100% success rate. So
that's. I mean, when you have good people to work with, that's probably a little bit easier. But So when you talk about networking, the chamber, this whole scope of business development, this is kind of the last big area I want to touch on. But say you're looking to get more networked, you're looking to improve your own business development. What can people do as new members of the chamber, taking advantage of these resources to really try and put themselves out there? Because it can be a vulnerable situation when you first start a business, when you have this idea in your head, when you're Tami just leaving the ad agencies and you're fleshing out all these ideas. What can you do to really get the most out of effective communication and just utilizing the networks, the resources that others have to give you, whether they be the chamber or anywhere else?
Yeah, a couple things. One is I think you need to have a really good elevator pitch. You have to have something that's really creative and interesting when you first introduce yourself and start meeting people. And I have I call it a recipe, but I always kind of coach my coachees into really thinking about your intro isn't, "Hi, I'm Tami Chapek. I'm a leadership coach and I've been doing this for a long," like that's not it, because no one's going to connect to that or stick with it unless that person is like, looking for a leadership coach. Like the odds are pretty
Yeah.
slim that that's going to happen in that exact moment, right? So it's about creating an emotional connection. And so I would say your intro needs to be a little bit of who you are, what you do, but more so why it matters to them. Like you need to get some kind of a compelling emotional connection. And the only thing you want to do with an introduction is to get them to ask you another question, right? It's just about opening the door for
Right.
conversation.
Yep.
So I think that's the biggest part, is it's not about telling your dissertation of your whole story. It's not about like your resume or career track, right? It's about like a little bit of something interesting for people to grab onto. So I think like learning to do that, and I'm not always good at it, right? But like learning to do that is the best way to start. Then you're going to have some more meaningful connections. I think also with networking, kind of meeting new people, I think you need to know what your ask is, whether it's never something you lead with, right? But you do need to know a specific ask, right? Is the specific ask, "I want to meet you for coffee," or is it, "Do you know someone who could benefit from my services?" Or is it like, you need something that people can sink their teeth into. Otherwise it's just a missed opportunity and there's nothing going to come out of it. And then the last thing I'll say about networking is it's on, I say this I teach a networking class, so bear with me for a second. But the last thing is like, you are the owner of the follow-up. Even though you've met somebody else and relationships are a two-way street, it's on you to be the one that reaches out next. Whether the reach out is the ask for coffee, or it's I saw this article that might be of interest to you, or just, "It's great to see you. I'd love to see you at the next network," whatever, right? Like it's on you to do that. And it's shocking the number of people that don't follow up post networking events. Even when they ask you for your business card, like whatever, then they don't do it, right? So it's on you to be the one to drive the relationship, and think about it. It is a relationship. It's not just a person.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's when it's important to capitalize on those relationships you make is right afterwards, because especially if you are meeting so many people, it's never bad to assert yourself and remind people that you exist. And when it comes to the
48
whole
hours max.
exactly, yeah. I usually do
Max.
it like the night of, because relationships are so fleeting and all of our memories are just in so many different places, and it's important to take advantage, be your biggest advocate. And even touching on the whole sales, personality type, and the issues that people can struggle with on that front. And certainly you and I have gone through that. There's a way to do it where it's not sales. And once you get into the habit of just looking for other people first and really trying to connect what you do to how you can provide value to them, you'll start to overcome that, because it doesn't feel mucky anymore. You don't get that same icky feeling where you're saying, "Oh, this is what I do, and you need to help me out." It's that making that connection has been the biggest thing for me personally, and I really encourage everyone to go through that period where it is hard in the beginning, but you start to make these amazing connections and you start to see people benefit from what you do, and it's just a never ending fire of motivation. So
Yeah.
getting out there is the first step, and then doing some of the things you said as well. But when you talk about the chamber specifically, what has your experience been like, and how would you recommend people can get the most out of it?
Yeah, I think the events are outstanding. I think the chamber puts on really fantastic events where it's always a different mix of people. So I think, I would encourage new members or anyone really to look across the variety of different types of events and know that each type of event is probably going to draw a different type of person. So depending on what you're looking for in regards to connections to make, I think like those can be really powerful. But it is, you need to put the effort in. I think the other thing that the chamber does really well is the kind of the representative or kind of person associated that you're tied to, if you will, as a member, and helping them understand who it is that you want to meet, and then using them to your advantage when you're in the networking room, right? Like, "Hey, is there anyone here that you think I should meet XYZ?" Whatever, right? Because the introductions are so much more powerful than the awkward, "I'm Tami, nice to meet you" once, right? Too. So I think, using the warm opportunity wherever you can is always a really helpful thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're all your advocates, but that person is just dedicated to you. And you know this with
Mhm.
working one-on-one on people, that that one-on-one effect. I mean, if Nick's listening, he can, take this himself, but building a personal relationship with that, becoming an advocate for one another is so powerful. And this is for any aspect in life, the chamber obviously too, but when you can really have someone that you're showing up for that has your same goals in mind. And like you said too, that I really want to highlight is you get out of it what you put into it. There's so many people that networking is just a checkbox task. You show your face, and I think it comes with a transition. I remember February 1st was the first day. Okay, business ownership. I have all these networking events lined up. I really got to get the most out of it because you can go to those events and you can say nothing. You can say nothing to anyone, and you're the one as the business owner taking the heat for that, and you're the one that's
Mhm.
going to feel at the end when things are happening the way you want them to. So really taking advantage of all those resources and putting yourself out there, I think, is the biggest takeaway. But we are getting, I don't want to take your whole schedule. Like someone in you, I very much value your time, and you like are mind blowing and incredible. And I could talk to you all day about business ownership, leadership, all these things that I'm trying to learn at this chapter of life that you provide value in. So I want to be mindful of your time because I will ramble all day. That's what I do as I talk. So, but I love to give you a platform to close out to just talk about what's on the horizon, what has you excited, where should people go after this to find you and get in touch? I mean, I know you mentioned a book, but what's next for Tami?
Yeah, the book is really the next big thing. And it's been that kind of brainchild that I've had in my heart for a while, and really gets to the heart of what we were talking about earlier, like authentic leadership, even though I know that term is so overused, but really helping people to define who am I as a leader, regardless of if they even have the level to be a leader, right? Like I think everyone's a leader. It's about movement. So the book is coming out hopefully by the end of this year. So that's exciting. And I think that's really an opportunity for us to spread our message a little bit more broadly and hopefully more rapidly, because I think that change is needed. And we'd love to be the catalyst for inspiring people to really think differently. And so that's coming. If anyone wants to learn more, weinspirewe.com is our URL. And so if you sign up for our newsletter, there'll be more information coming out on the book soon. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, but mostly LinkedIn if you want to find us on social channels. We do publish 2 newsletters a month, which are really designed to be inspirational and content that will give people some really clear takeaways about how to think or what to consider or what to reflect on across a variety of leadership and career topics. And so lately we've been talking a lot about like how to identify if you're a good leader, right? Are you that leader that people are leaving companies for? Or are you that leader that people want to like clamor to work for and be inspired by? So more to come in those areas. But yeah, that's us. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And we'll link to all that stuff below. But yeah, like I said, thank you so much. One thing I do like to end with is because I think this is a differentiator for everybody, but if you could put it down to 1, maybe 2 or 3 sentences, I'm not going to cut you off, but if you had to say, what would you say is your unique entrepreneurial advantage that you kind of bring to the table that only you can provide? And I think it's something that is revealed to you as you go through the hard parts that we talked about, the lonely chapters, the part where you're going through this period of self-discovery. But what would you say is your unique advantage that you bring to the table?
Yeah, I think as an organization, again, having that wide range of coaching talent, that bench of talent, and what we really differentiate ourselves from other groups are that, we can come in and be a strategic thought partner and help business leaders or HR managers to basically say, like, this is what we want to see for our people, and this is how we want to change the dynamics of things. And not only can we help put that plan together, but we have the talent to be able to support and become an extension of the team. Where I think I personally can say differentiated value, right, is in that kind of authenticity, right, in helping people to see that you have so much to offer. And I always tell people, like, don't undermine the value that you have to bring into the world, because your gifts and talents, your experiences, your perspective is unlike anybody else's. And that's a hard fact, right? There's no one else that has what you have to bring to the table. So don't undermine that. Lean into it and use it to your advantage.
Awesome.